Elizabeth Bennet tugged at the hem of her uniform one more time before stepping into the bedroom's suite. The dress was at least 3 inches shorter than the standard-issue one she usually wore, courtesy of a laundry mix-up at the cleaning agency. She had called her supervisor earlier that morning, but the woman had simply sighed and told her to make do. Clients in Atherton, California did not appreciate tardiness, even for wardrobe malfunctions. So here she was, 5 minutes early for her Thursday morning shift at the sprawling estate, feeling more exposed than professional. The bedroom was massive, all cream marble and soft gray accents, with furniture that probably cost more than Elizabeth would make in 5 years. Song Yikang sat at a mahogany desk positioned near the floor-to-ceiling windows, his posture perfect, his attention supposedly fixed on the laptop in front of him. Elizabeth had been cleaning this estate for 3 months through the agency. She knew the routine. Move efficiently, stay invisible, do not disturb the client. But the moment she wheeled her cleaning cart across the threshold, Songya's dark eyes lifted from his screen and landed directly on her. She felt the weight of his stare like a physical touch. He said nothing, just watched. Elizabeth was a fair-skinned black woman with a spray of freckles across her nose and cheeks. She wore her natural hair in a low bun, kept her makeup minimal, and had perfected the art of being forgettable in wealthy people's homes. It was safer that way. Easier. But Song Yikang was making that impossible. She cleared her throat softly and began with the bookshelves, very aware that his gaze followed her every movement. When she bent to retrieve a cleaning cloth from the lower shelf of her cart, she heard the distinct sound of his pen hitting the desk. Elizabeth. His voice was smooth, lightly accented, completely controlled. It sent an unwelcome shiver down her spine. She straightened immediately, professional smile in place. Yes, Mr. Kang. That uniform, is it new? Heat flooded her cheeks. Of all the things he could have commented on. There was a laundry mistake at the agency this morning. I apologize for the unprofessional appearance. It will not happen again, sir. Songyi leaned back in his leather chair, fingers steepling under his chin. He was handsome in a sharp, dangerous way. Early 30s with the kind of bone structure that belonged on magazine covers. But it was his eyes that caught her. Intelligent, assessing, missing nothing. I did not say I disapproved, he said quietly. The room suddenly felt 10 degrees warmer. Elizabeth swallowed hard and returned to her work, but she could feel him still watching, studying her like she was a puzzle he intended to solve. For the next 45 minutes, she cleaned around him while he pretended to work. The tension between them was thick enough to cut with a knife. She dusted the nightstands, changed the sheets on his California king bed, vacuumed the sitting area. Every movement felt amplified. Every time she bent or reached, she was hyper-aware of the too-short hem and his unwavering attention. When she finally finished and headed for the door, his voice stopped her. Elizabeth, tomorrow, same time, wear whatever uniform you choose. She nodded without turning around and left, her heart hammering in her chest like she had just run a marathon. In the hallway, she leaned against the wall and took a steadying breath. She needed this job. Her tuition payment for Stanford's nursing program was due in 2 weeks, and she was already juggling 3 jobs to make ends meet. Whatever had just happened in that room, she could not afford to lose this client. But as she pushed her cart toward the service elevator, one thought kept circling her mind. Song Yikang had not looked at her like she was just a maid. He had looked at her like she was someone worth seeing. So here's what I want to know. Do you think Elizabeth should have reported the way he looked at her, or is there something else going on here? Drop your thoughts in the comments and do well to like the video. Now, let's continue. The next morning, Elizabeth arrived at the Atherton estate wearing her regulation uniform. The proper one, with the hemline that hit just below her knees. She had given herself a stern talking to the night before. Song Yikang was just another client. Rich, powerful, and probably used to getting whatever he wanted. The way he had looked at her meant nothing. She was there to clean and collect her paycheck, nothing more. But when she entered his suite, she found a large white box sitting on the console table near the door. A small card rested on top, written in elegant handwriting. For your comfort while working. Elizabeth's hands trembled slightly as she lifted the lid. Inside was a dress. Designer label, beautiful fabric, clearly expensive. It was professional enough with a modest neckline and sleeves, but it was form-fitting and the hem would hit several inches above her knee. The price tag was still attached, $1,200. For a cleaning uniform. Elizabeth closed the box carefully and set it aside. This crossed a line, a clear line. She should report this to the agency, walk out, find a different client. But her student loan payment was due in 6 days, and she was already behind on her phone bill. And her mother's medical bills from Oakland kept piling up despite the payment plan Elizabeth had arranged. She heard movement from the bathroom and turned to see Songyi emerge, his dark hair still damp from a shower. He wore a crisp white dress shirt with the sleeves rolled to his forearms and dark slacks. Somehow the casual look made him more intimidating, not less. His eyes went to the unopened box, then to her face. "You do not like it." "Mr. Kang, I cannot accept gifts from clients. It is against agency policy." "Then do not accept it as a gift." He moved further into the room, his movements graceful and deliberate. "Consider it a uniform requirement for working in my home. I have certain standards for my household staff." For cleaning staff, Elizabeth heard the challenge in her own voice and immediately regretted it. She needed this job. But instead of anger, something that looked like respect flickered across Songya's face. "For everything in my life." Elizabeth straightened her shoulders. "I appreciate the thought, Mr. Kang, but I will wear my own agency-issued uniforms. They are perfectly professional." A slow smile crossed his face, transforming his features from intimidating to devastating. "As you wish." He settled into his desk chair, opening his laptop like the conversation had not just happened. Elizabeth waited for dismissal or anger, but he simply began typing, apparently unconcerned. She got to work, determined to be as professional and invisible as possible. 20 minutes into her cleaning routine, Songya spoke without looking up from his screen. "You are studying nursing at Stanford." Elizabeth's hands stilled on the window she was cleaning. It was not a question. "How did you know that?" "I make it my business to know about the people who enter my home." He finally looked at her. "You work 3 jobs. You send money to your mother in Oakland every month. You have never been late to a shift. You are dedicated." A chill ran down Elizabeth's spine. He had investigated her. That seems like an invasion of privacy. That seems like due diligence. Songya stood and walked to the window where she was working. He did not touch her, but he was close enough that she could smell his cologne, something expensive and subtle. "You also volunteer at a free clinic in East Palo Alto twice a month, even though you are exhausted. You tutor other nursing students who struggle with the coursework. You visit your mother every Sunday without fail." "You had someone follow me." Elizabeth's voice was sharper now, fear mixing with anger. "I had someone verify that you are exactly who you appear to be, honest, hardworking, trustworthy." He paused. "Beautiful." Elizabeth's breath caught. She should move away, should maintain professional distance, but her feet seemed rooted to the expensive carpet. "Mr. Kang." "Songye," he corrected softly. "When we are alone, you may call me Songye." "That would not be appropriate." "Many things about this are not appropriate, Elizabeth, but that does not make them less true." Before she could respond, his phone buzzed on the desk. He glanced at it, and his entire demeanor shifted. The moment of intimacy evaporated, replaced by something cold and focused. He answered in rapid Korean, his tone clipped and authoritative. Elizabeth could not understand the words, but she recognized power when she heard it. This was a man used to giving orders and having them followed without question. The conversation lasted maybe 2 minutes. When he hung up, tension radiated from his shoulders. "Leave the cleaning for today," he said curtly, not looking at her. "I need privacy." Elizabeth gathered her supplies, confused and oddly disappointed. She had been dismissed, put back in her place as just the help. As she reached the door, she glanced back. Songya stood at the window, hands braced on the frame, looking out over the manicured grounds. His posture screamed stress and burden. Whatever world he lived in, it was nothing like hers. And she needed to remember that. Elizabeth did not see Songyi for the next week. According to Mrs. Lim, the head housekeeper, he had traveled to Seattle for business and requested no cleaning services in his personal quarters during his absence. Elizabeth told herself she was relieved, told herself the strange flutter of disappointment in her chest was just her imagination. She picked up extra shifts at Valley Medical Center, where she worked as a nursing assistant, and tried to focus on her upcoming pharmacology exam. But her mind kept drifting back to the way Songye had looked at her, the way he had said her name, the way he had known details about her life that should have felt invasive, but instead felt like being truly seen for the first time in years. On Thursday, she returned to the Atherton estate for her regular shift. Mrs. Lim greeted her at the service entrance with an odd expression on her lined face. "Mr. Kang requested you clean his office today instead of the bedroom suite. Second floor, West Wing." Elizabeth had been working at this property for 3 months and had never been to the West Wing. That area was always off-limits. She found the double doors already open. The office was massive, all dark wood paneling and leather furniture, with built-in bookshelves that stretched to the 12-foot ceiling. Original artwork hung on the walls, pieces that Elizabeth suspected were worth more than most people's houses. The view overlooked the entire San Francisco Bay, glittering in the late morning sun. Songye sat behind a desk that looked like it belonged in a Fortune 500 CEO's corner office, because Elizabeth realized that was exactly what he was. "Come in, Elizabeth. Close the door behind you." Every instinct screamed warning, but she complied. The door clicked shut with a finality that made her pulse quicken. Songye stood and moved around the desk. He looked tired, she noticed, like the week away had worn on him in ways that had nothing to do with physical exhaustion. There were shadows under his eyes and new tension in his jaw. "I owe you an explanation," he began without preamble, "about who I am and why I have been inappropriate with you." "You do not owe me anything, Mr. Kang." "Songye," he corrected. "And I do, because I am going to ask something of you, and you deserve to know the full truth before you make a decision." For the next hour, Songye told Elizabeth everything. His family, the Kang family, controlled one of South Korea's largest conglomerates. Shipping, technology, entertainment, real estate. Legitimate businesses worth billions. But within the Korean community, both in Seoul and in cities like Los Angeles, San Francisco, and Seattle, they operated as something else entirely. They were not criminals, Songye was careful to clarify, but they were power brokers. The people other powerful people came to when they needed problems solved, deals brokered, disputes settled. They operated in the gray areas where law and influence intersected. His father was aging and wanted to retire. Songye was being groomed to take over the North American operations, but there were people in both California and Korea who did not want that to happen. "My cousin Minho believes the position should be his," Songye explained, packing the length of the office. "He has been working to undermine me, to prove that I am not strong enough or ruthless enough to lead." "What does this have to do with me?" Elizabeth asked, though she was beginning to understand. Songye stopped packing and looked directly at her. "2 weeks ago, I received a credible threat. Anyone I showed personal interest in would be used as leverage against me. My cousin has people watching me constantly. They saw how I looked at you, Elizabeth, and they will use that against me if given the opportunity." Elizabeth's mouth went dry. "Then we should stop this. Whatever this is, I should request a transfer to a different property." "You should," Songye agreed. "That would be the smart thing, the safe thing. But I am tired of living my life based on what is smart and safe. I am tired of making every decision based on family obligation and strategic positioning." He moved closer, not touching her, but close enough that she could see the conflict in his dark eyes. "For 3 months, I have watched you work. I have learned your routines, your habits. I know that you hum when you think no one is listening. I know you always clean the windows last because you like the view. I know you leave little origami cranes on Mrs. Lim's desk because you know she collects them." "You have been watching me," Elizabeth whispered. "I have been fascinated by you," Songye corrected. "By your kindness in a world that has given you every reason to be bitter. By your dedication to becoming a nurse so you can help people. by the way you see people, really see them instead of just looking through them. Elizabeth's heart was pounding. This is crazy. You are a whatever you are, and I am a nursing student who cleans houses to pay her tuition. We are from completely different worlds. I know, Songya's voice was rough. That is why I am giving you a choice. You can walk away right now, request a transfer. I will make sure the agency places you somewhere excellent with excellent pay. You will never see me again, and you will be safe from my world. Or you stay, and we see where this goes, knowing that it will be complicated and potentially dangerous, knowing that I cannot promise you safety or normalcy or any of the things you deserve. Elizabeth should have walked away. Every rational part of her brain screamed that this was a terrible idea. But when she looked at Songye, she did not see a powerful businessman or a Korean power broker. She saw a man who was tired of being alone, who was offering her the truth when he could have simply used his wealth and influence to seduce her. I need time to think, she said finally. Songye nodded. Of course, take all the time you need. As Elizabeth gathered her untouched cleaning supplies and headed for the door, his voice stopped her one more time. Elizabeth, whatever you decide, know that meeting you has reminded me what it feels like to want something just for myself, not for family, not for strategic advantage, just because it makes me happy. She left without responding, but his words echoed in her mind for days. Elizabeth did not request a transfer. She told herself she was being practical. The pay at the Atherton estate was better than most of her other clients, and she was only a few months away from graduation. She could handle a few more months of awkward tension with Songye Kang. But 3 days after their conversation in his office, Elizabeth came home to her tiny studio apartment in East Palo Alto to find a certified letter waiting in her mailbox. Her mother's medical debt had been paid in full, all $32,000 of it. The hospital billing department included a note stating that an anonymous donor had covered not only the existing debt, but had also set up a fund to cover her mother's ongoing treatment costs for the next 5 years. Elizabeth's hands shook as she read the letter a second time, then a third. There was only one person who would do this. She called her mother in Oakland, who was crying with relief and gratitude. Elizabeth listened to her talk about finally being able to afford her medications without choosing between them and rent, about being able to see her specialists without the constant anxiety of accumulating more debt. After they hung up, Elizabeth sat in her apartment for a long time, the letter clutched in her hands. Songye had bought her mother's health and peace of mind. She should have been angry, should have felt manipulated or indebted. Instead, she felt something she had not felt in years, hope. Elizabeth showed up at the Atherton estate that evening, bypassing the service entrance and buzzing the private gate she had seen Songye use for his personal vehicles. Security asked her to identify herself. Tell him Elizabeth is here. The gate opened within seconds. Songye met her at the front door himself, wearing jeans and a black sweater. Casual clothes that somehow made him look more dangerous rather than less. You should not have come here like this, he said, but he stepped aside to let her in. You paid my mother's medical bills. I did. Why? Songye led her through the mansion to a private sitting room she had never seen before. It was smaller than the other spaces, more comfortable. There were personal touches here, photos on the mantel, books on the shelves that actually looked read, a chess set mid-game on a side table. Your mother's medical debt was crushing you, Songye said simply. Every day you worked yourself to exhaustion trying to manage school, 3 jobs, and her care. I had the resources to remove that burden, so I did. People do not just give away $32,000. I do when I choose to. He poured her a glass of water, remembering without asking that she did not drink alcohol. There are no strings attached, Elizabeth. You owe me nothing. Whether you decide to walk away or stay, that money is your mother's. I will not take it back. Elizabeth sank onto the leather sofa, overwhelmed. I do not understand you. I know, Songye sat across from her, maintaining distance. I have spent my entire life in a world where everything is a transaction, where trust is currency and weakness is death. But you reminded me that not everything operates that way. That some people just give because they can, because it is right. So this is what? You trying to be a better person. This is me protecting something I care about, even if I cannot keep it. The raw honesty in his voice made Elizabeth's chest ache. The threats against you, she said quietly, against anyone you care about, are they real? Very real. Minho has allied himself with some dangerous people, not criminals, but powerful men who benefit from chaos. They are looking for any leverage they can find against me. And I am leverage. You would be, if they knew what you mean to me. Elizabeth met his eyes. What do I mean to you? Songyi was quiet for a long moment. More than is wise, more than is safe for either of us. Elizabeth thought about her mother, crying with relief on the phone. About the way Songyi had looked at her in his bedroom, like she mattered. About how tired she was of playing it safe and small. What if I do not care about safe? She asked. Songya's expression shifted into something raw and wanting. Elizabeth, you do not know what you are saying. Then tell me, explain it to me. She leaned forward. Because right now, all I know is that you have been more honest with me than anyone has in years. You investigated my background, yes, but you have never lied to me, never pretended to be something you are not. You showed me exactly who you are and gave me the choice. Songya stood abruptly, packing to the window. If you stay in my life, there will be consequences. You could be targeted, threatened. Your safety, your career, everything you have worked for could be at risk. Or, Elizabeth said, standing as well, I could be stronger than you think I am. He turned to face her, and for the first time, she saw something besides control in his expression. She saw hope. I cannot promise you a normal relationship. I cannot promise you safety or simplicity. I am from Oakland, Elizabeth said with a small smile. I stopped believing in guarantees a long time ago, but I do believe in choosing what I want despite the risks. And what do you want? Elizabeth crossed the room until she stood directly in front of him. Her heart was pounding, but her voice was steady. I want to stop pretending that I do not think about you, that I do not feel something when we are in the same room. I want to know who you really are, not just the powerful businessman everyone sees. Songya's control finally cracked. He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away and cupped her face gently. His thumb brushed across her cheekbone. If we do this, he said quietly, we do it carefully, privately. No one can know until I have secured my position and neutralized the threats from Minho. How long will that take? I do not know, weeks, maybe months. Elizabeth knew this was the moment to walk away. Every logical part of her brain screamed that this was a mistake, that she was stepping into a world she did not understand with a man who came with more baggage than she could imagine. But when Songyi looked at her like she was precious, like she was chosen, logic did not matter. Then I guess we should make the time count, she whispered. Songyi pulled her into his arms and kissed her. It was gentle at first, questioning, giving her one more chance to change her mind. But when Elizabeth kissed him back, threading her fingers through his hair, the gentleness gave way to hunger. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Songyi pressed his forehead to hers. You are sure about this? Absolutely terrified, Elizabeth admitted, but also more sure than I have been about anything in a long time. Songya smiled, and it transformed his entire face. For just a moment, he looked young and unburdened. Then let me take you to dinner. A real date, not just stolen moments in my home. Where can we go that is private enough? Leave that to me, Songya took her hand. I know a place. The place turned out to be a private restaurant in Woodside, another of California's wealthiest enclaves. The entire establishment had been reserved for the evening, just for them. Soft music played, candles flickered on the table, and the chef prepared a tasting menu that blended Korean and American cuisines. It should have felt excessive. Instead, it felt like Songyi was creating a space where they could just be themselves, without the weight of the outside world. They talked for hours, about everything and nothing. Elizabeth told him about growing up in Oakland with a single mother who worked as a home health aide, about watching her mother care for elderly patients with such tenderness and deciding that was what she wanted to do with her life, about the crushing reality of how expensive nursing school was and how far away her dreams sometimes felt. Songye told her about growing up in Seoul in a house that was more like a fortress, about being groomed from childhood to take over the family business, about the loneliness of being surrounded by people who wanted something from you but never just wanted you. "I have never brought anyone here," Songye admitted as they shared dessert. "This restaurant belongs to a family friend. It is one of the few places I can go and just be Songye, not the Kang heir. Thank you for sharing it with me." He reached across the table and took her hand. "Thank you for seeing me as just Songye." Over the next month, they fell into a rhythm. Elizabeth continued her regular schedule, attending classes at Stanford, working her hospital shifts, and maintaining her cleaning jobs at other properties. But 3 or 4 evenings a week, a car would pick her up after her last shift and bring her to Songye. Sometimes they went to the private restaurant. Sometimes they stayed at his Atherton estate, cooking dinner together in his private kitchen. Sometimes they drove to his cabin near Lake Tahoe and spent the weekend pretending they were a normal couple. Songye was teaching her Korean phrases. She was teaching him about American pop culture, which he found both baffling and entertaining. They watched movies, played chess, talked about their dreams. Elizabeth learned that Songye played piano beautifully, but only when he thought no one was listening. That he had a dry sense of humor that caught her off guard. That he was surprisingly domestic, enjoying cooking and the simple pleasure of taking care of someone. But there were also the other nights. The nights when his phone would ring at odd hours and he would have tense conversations in Korean before disappearing into his office. The nights when she would see the weight of his responsibilities settle over him like a physical burden. One evening, Elizabeth found him standing on his balcony, staring out at the lights of the Bay Area below. "Tell me about your cousin," she said, joining him. "Min-ho." Songye was quiet for a long time. "We grew up together in Seoul. Our fathers are brothers. For a while, when we were children, we were friends. But as we got older and it became clear that my father was being groomed for leadership instead of his, things changed. He resents you. He believes I stole what should have been his, that my father manipulated the family elders to choose our branch of the family over his." Songye's jaw tightened. "He is not entirely wrong. My father is very good at political maneuvering. But you are the better choice for leadership. I understand that power is not about fear or domination. It is about strategy, building alliances, knowing when to be strong and when to show flexibility. Min-ho only understands force. If he takes over our family operations, he will make enemies out of allies and start conflicts that will destroy everything our family has built." Elizabeth took his hand. "And the people threatening anyone you care about, that is him. Him and his allies, they are trying to isolate me, make me appear weak and distracted. A leader who cares too much about personal relationships is vulnerable." "Is that true, in your world?" Songye turned to look at her fully. "In my world, caring about someone means giving your enemies a weapon to use against you. It means putting that person in danger just by wanting them in your life. But you wanted me anyway." "I tried not to," Songye admitted. "For 3 months, I told myself you were just the woman who cleaned my bedroom, that the way I looked forward to Thursdays was just breaking up the routine. But then you showed up in that too-short dress, and I could not pretend anymore." Elizabeth smiled, despite the serious conversation. "So this is all the laundry service's fault." "Entirely their fault," Songye agreed, pulling her closer. "I was perfectly in control until that moment." They stood together in comfortable silence, looking out over the city lights. "There is going to be a family summit in 6 weeks," Songye said eventually. "In Napa Valley, all the major players in our family operations will be there. My father is going to announce his chosen successor. You. If I can prove I am the right choice, if I can show that I am strong enough to lead without being reckless like Min-ho." He paused. "And if I can keep you safe while doing it." Elizabeth's stomach tightened. "What happens at this summit?" "Min-ho will make his case for why he should lead instead of me. He will try to expose any weaknesses, any reasons why the family elders should choose him. And if he knows about you, he will use me against you." "Yes." Elizabeth was quiet, processing. So we have 6 weeks to stay hidden. 6 weeks, Songye confirmed. Then, if I am chosen, I will have the power and position to protect you openly, to claim you publicly if that is what you want. And if you are not chosen? Songye's arms tightened around her. Then I will walk away from all of it, my family, the business, everything, and we will build a life somewhere far from this world. Elizabeth turned in his arms to face him. You would do that, give up everything you have worked for. I would give up everything, Songye said simply, before I would give up you. The declaration should have felt like pressure. Instead, it felt like freedom. Elizabeth kissed him, pouring everything she could not quite say into the contact. Songye responded with equal intensity, lifting her easily and carrying her back inside. They had 6 weeks to stay invisible. But in this moment, with Songye's hands on her skin and his breath mingling with hers, the rest of the world ceased to exist. The secret lasted 5 weeks. Elizabeth should have known it was too good to be true, should have known that in Songye's world, nothing stayed hidden forever. She was leaving her evening shift at Valley Medical Center, exhausted from a 12-hour rotation and thinking about the pharmacology exam she needed to study for, when a black sedan pulled up beside her in the parking garage. The back window rolled down, revealing a Korean man in an expensive suit. He was younger than Songye, with sharper features and cold eyes that assessed her like she was an object to be acquired. Elizabeth Bennet, get in the car, we need to talk. I do not think so. Elizabeth picked up her pace, heading for her beat-up Honda 2 rows over. It was not a request. We need to discuss Songye Kang and the mistake you are making by involving yourself with him. Elizabeth's heart rate spiked, but she kept walking. I do not know what you are talking about. Please, we both know you have been sleeping with my cousin for the past month. Did you think we would not notice? Elizabeth broke into a run. She heard car doors opening behind her, heard footsteps following. She fumbled with her keys, hands shaking so badly she nearly dropped them. She got her car door open and locked herself inside, immediately pulling out her phone and calling Songye. He answered on the first ring. Elizabeth. They found me. Her voice was shaking. Someone just approached me in the parking garage at the hospital. They know about us. Silence for exactly 2 seconds. Then Songye's voice came back, completely controlled but laced with barely contained fury. Where are you right now? In my car, Los Gatos hospital parking garage. There is a black sedan behind me. They are not leaving. Lock your doors, do not move. I have security en route to your location. They will be there in 4 minutes. His voice softened slightly. Do you trust me? Elizabeth looked in her rearview mirror. The sedan was still there, idling, waiting. Yes. Then stay on the line with me until my people arrive. For 3.5 minutes, Songye kept talking to her, about nothing and everything. About the dinner he had planned for them that weekend. About a funny incident with Mrs. Lim and a confused grocery delivery, keeping her calm and grounded. When 2 black SUVs entered the parking garage, the sedan immediately reversed and sped away. 4 men in dark suits surrounded Elizabeth's car. One of them, an older Korean man with a military bearing, tapped on her window and spoke into his phone before nodding to her. Miss Bennet, we are here on behalf of Mr. Kang. Please follow us to a secure location. Elizabeth's hands were still shaking as she started her car and followed the convoy out of the garage. Songye stayed on the phone with her the entire time, his voice a steady anchor in the chaos. 20 minutes later, she pulled up to a property in Hillsborough that she had never seen before. Smaller than Songye's Atherton estate, but no less luxurious, with security measures she was only beginning to notice. Songye was waiting at the door. The moment Elizabeth stepped out of her car, he pulled her into his arms without a word, holding her so tightly she could barely breathe. I am sorry, he said quietly, his voice rough. I am so sorry. I should have had protection on you from the beginning. Elizabeth pulled back to look at him. Who was that? Your cousin? Min Ho's people. Come inside. We need to talk. Inside, Elizabeth met Grace Han, a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and an air of absolute competence. Grace was, Songye explained, the the head of security for the Kang family's North American operations. For the next hour, Elizabeth learned exactly how serious the situation had become. Minho had been watching Songyi for weeks. He had photographs of them together, including several taken with telephoto lenses at the private restaurant in Woodside. He knew about Elizabeth's background, her mother, her work, her schedule. "What does he want?" Elizabeth asked, fighting to keep her voice steady. "Leverage," Grace explained. "Right now, Songyi is the favored choice for leadership at the summit next week. But if Minho can prove that Songyi is distracted by personal relationships, or if he can use you to force Songyi into making mistakes, he can shift the elder's opinion." Elizabeth looked at Songyi. "Then we end this, publicly, make it clear I mean nothing to you." "No," Songyi's voice was absolute. "Songyi, be reasonable." "I said no." He stood, packing like a caged animal. "I have spent my entire life making strategic sacrifices, giving up everything I wanted for family obligations and political positioning. I will not sacrifice you." "Then what is the alternative?" Elizabeth's voice rose. "I live in hiding, give up school, my job, my entire life." "There is a third option," Grace said quietly. Both Elizabeth and Songyi turned to her. "We go on offense. Minho's power base is weaker than he pretends. He has made promises to allies that he cannot keep. If we can expose those failures before the summit, we undermine his credibility and eliminate him as a threat." "How?" Songyi asked. Grace pulled out her tablet. "Minho is hosting a private gathering in 3 days at his penthouse in Pacific Heights, a networking event for Korean business leaders. We can get Elizabeth inside." "Absolutely not," Songyi said immediately. But Elizabeth was already thinking it through. "What would I need to do?" "Plant a listening device in his office. Get out clean." Grace looked at Songyi. "Minho will never suspect her. He thinks she is just a maid you were sleeping with. He will not see her as a threat." "Because I am not a threat," Elizabeth pointed out. "I am a nursing student." "Exactly," Grace said. "Which makes you perfect for this. You are smart, you are calm under pressure, and you have every reason to want to help Songyi." Songyi was shaking his head before Grace finished. "I will not put Elizabeth in that kind of danger." "I am already in danger," Elizabeth said quietly. "They know about me. They approached me. Running and hiding will not make me safer." "Elizabeth." She took his hands. "You told me you have spent your whole life making sacrifices for family obligation. Let me make this choice for myself, for us. I am not some fragile thing that needs protecting. I am someone who can help." They argued for another hour, but Elizabeth held firm. Finally, Songyi agreed, but only with extensive preparation and multiple backup plans. The next 3 days were intense. Grace trained Elizabeth on how to move through the event, how to plant the device, how to extract herself if anything went wrong. Songyi was present for every training session, his stress palpable. The night before the event, he pulled Elizabeth aside in the secure house. "You do not have to do this." "I know. If anything goes wrong." Elizabeth put her hand on his chest, feeling his heart racing beneath her palm. "Then your people will get me out. Grace has planned for every contingency." "I cannot lose you, Elizabeth. You have become—" He trailed off, struggling for words. "I know," Elizabeth said softly. "You have become that for me too." Songyi kissed her then, desperate and claiming. When they finally pulled apart, he rested his forehead against hers. "After this is over, after the summit, I am going to ask you something. And I need you to know that whatever your answer is, it will not change how I feel about you." "What are you going to ask?" "Let me survive the next few days first. Then we will talk about the future." Elizabeth nodded, her heart full of things she could not quite name. Tomorrow, she would walk into the enemy's home and take a risk that could change everything. But tonight, she was here with Songyi, and that was enough. The penthouse in Pacific Heights was everything Elizabeth expected. Sleek, modern, expensive. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the Golden Gate Bridge, and the guest list was a who's who of influential Korean Americans in the Bay Area. Elizabeth wore a simple but elegant navy dress that Grace had selected. Her hair was styled professionally, and she carried a leather portfolio that made her look exactly like what she was supposed to be. A Stanford nursing graduate student researching healthcare accessibility in immigrant communities. Min-ho Kang was holding court near the bar when she arrived. He was handsome in a calculated way, younger than Song-yi by a few years, with a smile that never quite reached his eyes. Elizabeth watched him work the room, seeing the political animal Song-yi had described. She mingled, making small talk about her fictional research project, slowly working her way toward the hallway that led to the private offices. Grace's voice was a quiet presence in the nearly invisible earpiece she wore. 2 guards at the far end of the hallway. Shift change in 90 seconds. Elizabeth chatted with a doctor from Stanford Medical Center, laughing at his jokes while counting down the seconds. When Grace gave the all clear, she excused herself to use the restroom and slipped down the hallway instead. The office door was unlocked. Too easy, some part of her brain warned, but she was committed now. She slipped inside, pulled the tiny listening device from her clutch, and placed it exactly where Grace had instructed, under the lip of Min-ho's desk. She was turning to leave when the door opened behind her. Min-ho Kang stood in the doorway, 2 security people flanking him. His smile was sharp as a knife. "Looking for something, Miss Bennett." Elizabeth's blood turned to ice, but she kept her voice steady. "I apologize. I was looking for the restroom." "In my private office, please." Min-ho stepped inside and closed the door. "We both know why you are here." Grace's voice in her ear. "Emergency extraction. Stay calm. Song-yi is en route." Min-ho circled her slowly, like a predator sizing up prey. "My cousin has always had a weakness for strays, people he thinks he can save, but you are more interesting than I expected. A nursing student with the nerve to walk into my home and plant surveillance equipment." "I do not know what you're talking about." Min-ho pulled out his phone and showed her a photo. Elizabeth and Song-yi on his balcony in Atherton, clearly taken with a telephoto lens. Her stomach dropped. "You are not as secret as you think," Min-ho said softly. "I have been watching both of you for weeks, waiting to see how far he would go to protect you." He gestured to his security. "Take her to the car downstairs, quietly." "Wait," Elizabeth started, but they were already moving. They were professionals. Within seconds, she was being escorted toward a service elevator, Grace's voice shouting coordinates in her ear. The underground garage was dimly lit and eerily quiet. A black SUV waited with the engine running. Elizabeth's heart hammered as they pushed her toward it. Then everything happened at once. Songya's security team came from 3 directions. There was shouting in Korean. Min-ho's people drew weapons, but they were tasers and batons, not guns. This was about power and intimidation, not murder. Elizabeth broke free in the chaos and ran toward the exit, but someone grabbed her from behind. She screamed Songya's name. Then she heard his voice, cutting through everything like a blade. "Let her go, Min-ho, now." Elizabeth twisted to see Song-yi standing at the garage entrance, flanked by 6 of his own security people. He looked absolutely lethal, every bit the powerful man people feared. Min-ho emerged from the shadows, still holding Elizabeth's arm. "You are in no position to make demands, cousin. You are in my city, operating on my territory. You think I do not know every move you make?" Songya's voice was cold as ice. "Then you know I have allies who will support my claim at the summit. Allies who see you as weak, compromised by your feelings for a woman who does not belong in our world." "Elizabeth belongs wherever she chooses to be," Songya said, "and she chooses to be with me." "Then you choose her over your family, over your responsibilities. You prove everything I have been telling the elders. You are not fit to lead." Song-yi pulled out his phone and held it up. On the screen was a video conference call. Elizabeth recognized Songya's father and several other stern-looking older Korean men and women. Min-ho's face went pale. "They have been listening to everything," Songya said quietly, "including your admission that you have been surveilling me, threatening Elizabeth, operating against family interests for personal gain. Kidnapping, Min-ho. You just committed kidnapping in front of the family elders." One of the elders spoke in Korean, her voice sharp and authoritative. Grace translated quietly. Minho Kang, you are removed from all family operations effective immediately. You will return to Seoul and answer for your actions before the full council. Minho released Elizabeth immediately, his face twisting with rage. But he was outnumbered and outmaneuvered. His own security people stepped away from him, unwilling to go against a direct order from the family elders. As Minho was escorted out by family security, Song-yi finally crossed the garage and pulled Elizabeth into his arms. Are you hurt? No, scared, but not hurt. Elizabeth was shaking now that the adrenaline was fatting. I am sorry I put you in this position. I should never have agreed to this plan. Elizabeth pulled back to look at him. We took the risk together, and it worked. Minho is finished. Song-yi cupped her face gently. He is finished because you were brave enough to walk into danger, because you trusted me to protect you. Always, Elizabeth whispered. Song-yi kissed her then, in front of his security team and the family elders still watching on the video call. A public claiming. A statement that Elizabeth was his and he was hers, and anyone who had a problem with that could deal with him directly. When they finally pulled apart, Grace was smiling slightly. Well, she said, I guess the secret is out. The family summit took place at a private resort in Napa Valley 1 week later. Elizabeth was there as Song-yi's official guest, and her presence sent ripples through the entire Korean business community. The young Korean-American leader being groomed to take over his family empire had chosen a black nursing student from Oakland as his partner. It was unprecedented. It was scandalous. It was Song-yi making it absolutely clear that he would lead on his own terms. Elizabeth sat through meetings conducted entirely in Korean, understanding nothing but watching Song-yi command every room he entered. He presented evidence of Minho's mismanagement, his reckless decision-making, his attempts to destabilize the family operations for personal gain. He outlined his own vision for the future: legitimate business expansion, strategic partnerships, modernizing their operations while maintaining the family's influence and respect in the Korean community. His father watched everything with an unreadable expression. On the final evening, the patriarch called Song-yi and Elizabeth to a private meeting in his suite. Elizabeth's heart hammered as they entered the room where the old man waited with 2 other family elders. Song-yi's father looked at Elizabeth for a long moment before speaking in careful English. You are the nursing student. Yes, sir. You work hard to pay for your school. You care for your mother. You walked into my nephew's home and planted a listening device, even though you were afraid. Elizabeth swallowed. Yes, sir. Why? Because Song-yi asked me to, and because I believe in what he is trying to build. The patriarch turned to his son. You are certain about this woman? Completely, Song-yi said without hesitation. The old man nodded slowly. Then she must understand what it means to be part of this family, the expectations, the responsibilities. With respect, father, Song-yi said carefully, I intend to change what it means to be part of this family, to make it something we choose, not something we endure. A long silence filled the room. Then Song-yi's father smiled just slightly. You are more like me than you know, Song-yi. Very well. You have my blessing for leadership, and for this woman. Elizabeth felt like she could breathe for the first time in days. But, the patriarch continued, you must prove yourself. You have 6 months to stabilize our North American operations under your new vision. If you succeed, the position is permanently yours. If you fail. I will not fail, Song-yi said. His father stood, indicating the meeting was over. As they turned to leave, he stopped Elizabeth with a hand on her arm. My son has never defied me before, never challenged family expectations. You changed him. Make sure it is for the better. I will do everything I can to support him, sir. The old man studied her face. I believe you will. The next 6 months were a whirlwind. Song-yi restructured the family's North American operations, cutting ties with questionable associates and forming new partnerships with legitimate businesses. He faced resistance from old guard members who preferred the previous ways, but he held firm. Elizabeth finished her nursing degree at Stanford and accepted a position at a community health clinic in Oakland that served underserved populations. The clinic received a major donation from the Kang Family Foundation shortly after, allowing them to expand their services. She moved out of her tiny studio and into a beautiful apartment in Palo Alto, maintaining her independence while being close to Songye. They kept their relationship relatively private, but not secret. Elizabeth met other family members, learned about Korean culture, slowly found her place in Songye's complex world. There were difficult days when the pressure of expectations felt crushing, days when Elizabeth wondered if she had made the right choice, days when Songye's responsibilities kept them apart for weeks. But there were also beautiful days when Songye surprised her at the clinic with lunch, days when they escaped to his Lake Tahoe cabin and pretended they were just a normal couple, days when she saw the man behind the power, the person who wanted to be chosen for who he was, not what he represented. 6 months to the day after the Napa Valley Summit, Songye's father called another family meeting. Elizabeth sat beside Songye as the patriarch reviewed the results of the restructuring. Revenue was up, legal challenges were down, new partnerships had opened doors the family had never accessed before. The North American operations were more stable and profitable than they had been in a decade. "You have proven your vision works," Songye's father said. "The position is yours. You are now the official head of our North American operations." The room erupted in applause. Songye accepted with grace and humility, thanking his father and the family elders. But when the formal business concluded, Songye stood and asked for one more moment of everyone's attention. Elizabeth's heart skipped when he turned to her. "For 6 months, you have all watched me rebuild our operations and prove my leadership. But I could not have done any of it without the woman who has stood beside me. Elizabeth has challenged me, supported me, reminded me that power without purpose is meaningless." He pulled a small box from his pocket and dropped to one knee in front of the entire assembled family. Elizabeth's hands flew to her mouth. "You chose me when you had every reason to walk away," Songye said quietly. "You took risks for me, fought for us, believed in a future we could build together. Elizabeth Bennet, will you marry me?" The room had gone completely silent. Elizabeth looked at the man kneeling before her. The Korean power broker who had watched her in a too-short dress and seen not just a body, but a person worth knowing, worth protecting, worth choosing. "Yes," she said, tears streaming down her face. "Yes, I will marry you." Songye slipped the ring on her finger, a perfect blend of traditional and modern, just like them, and pulled her into his arms while the room erupted in celebration. It was not the life Elizabeth had imagined for herself. It was so much better. The wedding took place 10 months later at a private vineyard in Sonoma County, another of California's beautiful wine regions. It was a perfect blend of cultures, Korean traditions mixed with American touches, family from Seoul mixing with Elizabeth's relatives from Oakland. Elizabeth's mother, healthy and radiant thanks to her ongoing treatment, cried through the entire ceremony. She pulled Songye aside afterward and said, "You take care of my daughter, or nursing degree or not, I will find you." Songye had laughed and promised he would. The reception was elegant but warm. Speeches in multiple languages, dancing that lasted until midnight, food that celebrated both heritages. Elizabeth's nursing school friends mingled with Korean business leaders. Songye's family elders chatted with Elizabeth's hospital colleagues. It was a statement, like everything they did together. Two worlds coming together, finding common ground, building something new. During their first dance, Songye pulled Elizabeth close. "Do you regret it? That day the cleaning agency sent you to my home." Elizabeth smiled up at him. "Are you kidding? Best laundry mix-up of my life." "I am serious, Elizabeth. This year has been intense. You gave up a lot to be part of my world." "I did not give up anything," she corrected. "I chose a different path, one that includes you. And yes, it has been intense and complicated and sometimes scary, but it has also been amazing." "You are amazing," Songye said softly. "You walked into my life and changed everything, made me believe I could be more than just the family heir, that I could build something meaningful." "We built it together," Elizabeth reminded him. As the night wore on and the celebration continued, Elizabeth found herself standing on a balcony overlooking the vineyard, taking a quiet moment to herself. Grace had appeared beside her, with 2 glasses of champagne. To the woman who walked into a Mafia boss's bedroom and walked out with his heart, Grace said, offering a toast. Elizabeth laughed. I was terrified that entire first day. But you did it anyway. That is courage. Grace sipped her champagne. Songyi is a different leader because of you, more compassionate, more willing to innovate. The family is better for it. I just remind him that power is only useful if you are building something worth having. Keep doing that, Grace said warmly. We need you. Elizabeth smiled. I'm not going anywhere. 3 years later, Elizabeth was the director of nursing at the expanded Oakland Community Clinic, which now had 3 locations serving low-income families throughout the East Bay. The clinics were funded by the Kang Family Foundation, one of Songya's initiatives to give back to the communities they operated in. Songya had fully transformed the family's North American operations into a legitimate enterprise with holdings in technology, healthcare, and real estate development. He was respected not just in Korean circles, but in the broader California business community. They split their time between a home in Atherton and an apartment in San Francisco. Elizabeth had become fluent in Korean. Songyi had developed an inexplicable love for American football, particularly the San Francisco 49ers. They had their first child, a daughter they named Grace Minseo Kang, honoring both the woman who had helped protect them and Songya's Korean heritage. And sometimes, when Songya worked from home, Elizabeth would put on one of her old cleaning uniforms as a joke. Really? Songya would say, looking up from his laptop with amusement and desire. What? You could not keep your eyes off me the first time. Thought I would see if it still works. It always did. Because their love story had never really been about a dress or a penthouse, or even the dramatic risks they had navigated together. It had been about 2 people choosing each other across impossible circumstances, about finding partnership in unexpected places, about building a life that honored both their pasts and their hopes for the future. Elizabeth had walked into Songya's bedroom as a maid in a too-short dress. She had walked out as the woman who changed his world. And every single day, she chose him again, just as he chose her. That, Elizabeth thought as she watched her husband play with their daughter in the backyard of their Atherton home, was the real story worth telling. Not the drama, or the danger, or the wealth, but the simple, profound truth that love, when chosen freely and fought for fiercely, could bridge any divide. If you made it all the way to the end of Elizabeth and Songya's story, thank you for being here. Drop a comment and let me know what you think their second child should be named. I love hearing your ideas. And if this story touched you in any way, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel because I have so many more stories like this coming your way. See you in the next one.